everyone. On behalf of the Department of Economics of St. George's Cathedral Mission College, I welcome you all to this special lecture on BRICS and the changing global order. Before proceeding further with this program, as is the custom of this missionary college, we start every program with a prayer, and Professor Khan of the Department of Political Science will offer the prayer for us. Please.
Let us make you a long prayer. Our precious Heavenly Father, we come to you this time. Thank you once again, Lord, for the gift of life. We thank you once again, Lord, for the seminar that you organized, the special lecture. We pray that each one of us who is present and those who are on their way will be greatly benefited by the discussions, by the questions that are raised. And we thank you once again, Lord, for this beautiful college where we will once again gather. And we pray that throughout the proceedings, you will be with us, you will strengthen each one of our students, Lord, that they will be able to have a receptive mind, they will be able to learn from today, and they will also be enriched. We thank you once again, Lord, for the management of our institution. We pray that our institution will continue to grow from strength to strength. We thank you once again for all the faculty members, all the staff members who are present today and who commit this entire program into your holy and loving hands. In your matchless name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. May God bless us all.
Thank you, Ruth. I would now request our teacher in charge, Professor Devashish Mondal, to please come on the dais and take a seat. Next, I would request our special guest today, Professor Rajat Ganguly, to please come up on the dais and take a seat. Our student of semester 2, Shushmita, will felicitate our guest with a
take it.
We are very happy by God's grace, the Department of Economics, in association with IQAC of the college, has added this special lecture today on BRICS and changing global order. We welcome the speaker, Professor Rajat Ganguly from the Murdoch University, Australia. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much to be part of our endeavor. And thank you very much that we will be learning a lot from him. We all know that BRICS, this is the acronym, and it represents 5 emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So they have immense potential economically and population, resource, natural resources. They are very rich in natural resources. So they can change the global order in terms of power, where Western world was dominating so far. And till now, they can change this world order. Of course, this will have impact on many aspects. And already we have seen that they have various BRICS have organized some summit in 2006, 2009. And one thing that they have already developed, that is NDB, National Development Bank. So they also help the 4 countries to have sustainable development. And we know much from Dr. Ganguly about how this situation is emerging and how this order can change, and especially after 484 days of war, with Ukraine and Russia, maybe the Cathedral also has some impact. Thank you very much, the Vikas, and also I thank thanks to all the professors, all the teachers, all the key staff, and the students, and the guests for being with us. Thank you very much.
Sir has rightly pointed out, the topic of today's lecture that has profound geo-economic and geopolitical significance. And it's a moment of great pleasure and honor for me to introduce today's speaker to you all. Is the Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of Asian Security and International Affairs and a senior faculty member in International Relations and Security Studies at Murdoch University, Western Australia. He received his PhD in Political Science from Tulane University and has held academic positions at Murdoch University, the University of East Anglia, Victoria University of Wellington, the University of Southern Mississippi, Tulane University, and the University of West Florida. He has also been a visiting research fellow at McGill University, Canada. He is a member of the editorial boards of the Journal of South Asian Development, South Asian Survey, and the Journal of Northeast Indian Studies. He specializes in international relations and international security, ethnic conflict and insurgency movements, terrorism and political violence, Indian foreign and security policy, and Indo-Pacific strategic affairs. In an academic career spanning 35 years, he has authored and edited several books and monographs, journal articles, book chapters, and opinion pieces. He is currently working on a book on the Sri Lankan ethnic civil war, which is expected to be published next year. It is indeed an honor for us to have him here today, but this introduction of Professor Ganguly would be incomplete in our college if I don't mention, for those who don't know, that he is the younger brother of Dr. Ingray Banerjee of our department. And that makes this day even more special to all of us. And I know in today's audience there are people who have come not only because of their academic interest in the topic, but also because of their personal connection with Professor Ganguly. So I shall not waste any more time and invite Professor Ganguly to deliver his lecture. Sir, please.
At the very outset, I take time to Professor Rammohan, At the outset, let me thank Professor Murdoch, Professor Mukherjee, the entire college for this very warm invitation to come and speak to you today. It's indeed a pleasure to come here. And although I come to Calcutta quite frequently, I must say that over the past few years, I actually haven't done too many presentations there, simply because probably I've been staying here long now. But this time, because I'm here for over 6 weeks, I'm not only doing today's talk, but I'm giving 2 further talks next week, which I'm very much looking forward to. So thanks so much for having me here today and giving me the chance to talk about something that I've been working on for a little while, given my interest in great power conflicts, global crime, and so on. But before I get into the topic, let me quickly say to all of you, perhaps in a slightly lighthearted note, that today I feel actually almost like Raj Kapoor in Meranam Joker, with a slightly reddish nose, feeling like a Joker. almost. And I have to thank Calcutta's Murdoch for it. I've become a little bit sunburned, I must admit. I've been walking a lot, I've been out in the sun a lot, and like a very foolish person, I forgot to put some sunscreen on my cheeks and on my nose, which is how you are saying what you are saying today. Coming back to the question of BRICS, look, I mean, all of you who are following events in the world over the past year, since the Ukraine war started in February of 2022, would know that, or perhaps would sense that there's some tectonic shifts taking place in the global power balance. And this war is an indication of that. It symbolizes perhaps the first big resistance, I would say, to what came to be known as a very hegemonic Western liberal order that came to dominate world politics, I would say roughly from 1991, 1992, which I'll cover some of that. So in this paper, which I've been working on, which I plan to present at a major conference in Bangkok later on this year, the question that I ask is, what are international orders? So when we talk about orders, there is a change of order, global order. So first question is, what are international orders, and why and how do they shape the behavior within what we consider to be a very anarchical international system? Now, anarchical international system here does not mean that there is complete chaos in the system. What international relations specialists mean by anarchy is that we have no world government. So sovereign states are the final authority in the world. We don't have a supra-sovereign world government. And in that sense, the system is anarchical because when a country, let's say India, when India gets into trouble, India cannot dial a 000 number and say, please come and help me. There is nobody in the international system, like the police or fire brigade or some ambulance that you can call who will come to help you, because there is none existing in the international system. The UN, especially those who are studying political science, will know the UN is not a world government. The UN is basically a regime, some kind of regime, and I'll come to that in a second. So the starting point of this discussion is we need to understand what international order is in order to understand what is happening right in front of our eyes. I would say we are at the cusp of history. History is being remade, and we will have a much better sense next month when BRICS will hold its annual summit in Johannesburg, in South Africa, where you could expect perhaps the expansion of BRICS, because many countries are looking to join this organization. So what I decided to do today is to start you with a conceptual argument of what international order is, very quickly. Then talk about the evolution of different international orders in the world since 1945, and then bring the discussion to BRICS and spend time on BRICS and what BRICS symbolizes. And as Professor Murdoch was asking me just a little while ago, that BRICS, although it's a great development in some ways, it is also full of contradictions in some other ways. So we will talk about some of that. So let's start with this question, very basic question. What is an international order? An international order, one could argue, is a clustering of norms and institutions that determine membership, objectives, and rules of the game within an anarchical international system. So, European Union is an international order. Or even more broadly, Western liberalism is an international order. It's a cluster of institutions. It has its certain way of normative view of the world, so norms have been established, and the Western liberal order admits certain members within that order, so within that club. So membership is determined, norms are determined, and objectives are determined. So you could see BRICS almost as an emerging new order where membership, objectives, norms would be redefined in that sense. So international order is basically a clustering of norms and institutions that determine membership, objectives, and rules of the game within an anarchical international system. Now, if this is true, then post-1945, I could divide the world into 3 time periods, and in each of these time periods, you will see a different kind of international order which had an impact on global politics. So my argument is that between 1945, World War II came to an end in 1945 roughly. So between 1945 and 1991, when the Cold War came to an end, with the collapse of the Soviet Union at the end of 1991, we had very broadly 3 different orders in the world that competed with each other. And of course, through that competition, sometimes there was conflict as well. So which were the 3 orders that existed between 1945 and 1991? The first is a Western order. So there was a Western order that was created. What did it comprise of? It comprised of institutions such as NATO, European Union, although European Union took a while to form. Those of you who study political science probably would know that after 1945 in Europe, it started as the European Coal and Steel Community. From that, it became the European Economic Community, then a common market, and then eventually transitioned to the European Union. So, a process of institution building in Europe, which culminated with the formation of the European Union, a common currency, etc., the euro, etc. But America created, after 1945, several other institutions that all of you, I'm sure in this room, know a lot about. And I would point out 3 institutions that were created immediately after the Second World War, which collectively we call the Bretton Woods institutions. One was the World Bank, or the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. One was the International Monetary Fund. And the third one was the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, which then transitioned into the World Trade Organization in 1995. So GATT is the predecessor for the World Trade Organization. What did these organizations do? This is a simple, brilliant question that people may ask. What kind of norms, what kind of objectives did these organizations set? What was the purpose of NATO? When NATO was formed in the late 1940s, NATO's purpose was very clear. Everybody understood that in Europe, which had now come to be divided by an iron curtain, Winston Churchill very famously said in 1946, in a speech in Kolkata, Missouri, that an iron curtain has descended over Europe. Europe has now come to be divided between a Western Europe, which is liberal, democratic, free market capitalist, and an Eastern Europe, which is now under communist rule. So there's this iron curtain through the middle of Europe, and one of the big victims of this iron curtain was Germany, which came to be divided into a communist East Germany and a democratic liberal West Germany. NATO's purpose was very clear when it was established. That NATO's primary purpose was to collectively defend against Soviet expansionism. And to understand this concept, why do we need to defend against Soviet expansionism, we have to go back and read the writings of George Kennan, who influenced American foreign policy in the 1940s. So George Kennan had an article published in Foreign Affairs, in which he basically laid down what later on came to be known as American containment policy. And George Kennan's basic argument was, Soviet communism is like a cancer. It is a very virulent form of ideology. If you don't resist it, this ideology will eventually overwhelm entire European defenses. It will spread to all nooks and corners of Europe. And if Europe falls, if one domino falls, then the next domino will fall. And this will be at par with the very internationalist orientation of communist ideology, which is to conquer the entire world communism. So this was ideological goal of communist international also take over in Africa, take over in Asia, take over in Latin America, entire world will become communist. And that simply is not acceptable. So we have to set up a line of defense. Now, where did this line of defense start initially? It started in Greece in 1946, where President Truman decided that he has to intervene in Greek politics to prevent a communist takeover of Greece. And that then became the Truman Doctrine, that whenever there is a chance of a communist takeover, we will intervene to resist that so that we can contain the spread of communism, which is a very aggressive, virulent form of ideology. So NATO's purpose was very clear. We are forming a military alliance, combining the entire resources of Europe, adding to that resources of America and Canada, and we are going to create almost a military defense against the expansion of the Soviet Union. Now, why was this so important? Well, the one simple fact that in conventional force system, Warsaw Pact outnumbered European forces by almost 4:1. So Warsaw Pact size was 4 times bigger in terms of conventional military strength compared to European forces, European defense. So everybody understood the game. That if we don't collectively come, if America doesn't come and stay in Europe in the form of NATO, militarily, then Soviet Union probably could someday decide we are going to not stop with the division of Germany, we have to just walk in. And then what's going to happen? European territories will be able to resist maybe for a week, for 2 weeks, maybe a month, and then the Soviet Union will take over everything. So remember, America until the Second World War was an isolationist power. America did not want to get involved in European politics. This was at par with America's self-declared Monroe Doctrine, which basically said, European countries, you stay there, I will mind my own affairs, you don't mess here, I won't mess there. So this changes with the Truman Doctrine in 1946, and then NATO is formed and America makes its first big military commitment in Europe to draw the line. So NATO was one. If you follow the pattern of European integration, starting with European Coal and Steel Community, and then eventually to the formation of the European Union, common currency, etc., America encouraged this. America, as the leader of the so-called Western order, encouraged this because American academics, those who were of the liberal persuasion, because in international relations we basically divide academia into a liberal camp and a realist camp. So those who were of the liberal persuasion, their argument was that liberalism, the two sides of liberalism being democracy and free market capitalism, this is a better ideology. Of all the ideologies in the world, this is by far the best ideology. We must defend this. And one way of ensuring, consolidating democracy, one way of strengthening democracy, free market, is to economically integrate Europe. So gradual integration happened, and as a result of that, you see what you see today with the European Union and common currency, etc. So this happened. What was the purpose of the World Bank? Very clearly, there was this understanding that because of the Second World War, the devastation that has happened due to the war, not only in Europe but in other parts, particularly in Asia, where America had fought a war with Japan and so on, you need some kind of a bank backed by the power of the US dollar, which will create the reconstruction, the building back of the world. Because if you don't build back, if you don't build back the economy, if you don't build back infrastructure, if you don't create opportunities for jobs for people, then those societies will be more vulnerable to a communist takeover. So this was the mindset that we don't want communism to grow. So what we need to do is create a bank backed by the US dollar that would provide the money for very quick redevelopment of the world. And the idea is that if people are, if they have better economy, more developed economy, if they are prosperous, if they have jobs, etc., they'll be less inclined to fall for communist ideology. So again, fighting communism, we need the world. International Monetary Fund was created after the economics model, the economics would grow, encourage free market trade. So the basic idea of liberal economics were, especially to the third world, that don't turn your back on free market economic principles. Now, the argument from the underdeveloped third world was, yes, but we are trading in unequal products. We are mostly the producer of primary goods. We sell that, so India sells steel to America, but in return we are buying manufactured goods from you. The price differential between a primary product and a manufactured good is so high that we will run massive balance of trade deficits. We will have balance of trade problems if we completely open up our economies. So in Latin America, some of you would know that they experimented with the concept called input substitution industrialism in the 1950s, 60s. It was a very popular thing. And populist leaders came to power in Latin America basically saying, we shouldn't import so much of manufactured products. We should export our products to the United States and to the developed world, and we should build our own industries here so that we can manufacture things here. And we need a bit of protection for that. Nehru's argument in India, very clearly articulated in Discovery of India, was that India's nascent industry needs protection from competition from the developed world, because if you don't protect your nascent industries, they won't be able to compete in terms of quality, in terms of price, in terms of reach, and so on. And this is a debate, even today it continues. When Walmart comes in, when Kmart comes in, with the kind of muscle power that they have, Amazon comes in, all of a sudden, it is the local industries which suffer because they can't compete with this massive global company. So IMF's job was to convince particularly the developing countries that if you run deficits, it's not a problem because we will give you loans on very soft terms, which will allow you to maintain a healthy balance of payment option. These loans you can get very maybe low interest rates, you can pay them back, but don't turn your back on global trade, because liberal economists have always made this connection that if you open yourself to global trade, eventually that will translate into economic wealth, and this economic wealth will then create a high standard of living, per capita income, etc. And that was created basically to monitor global trade. So general agreement of tariffs and trade, so that tariffs, etc. can be monitored. World Trade Organization that picked up from that in 1995. Trade disputes, etc. can be resolved by that. So all of these institutions were created as part of the Western order, and America basically said after 1945, we can't be an isolationist power, we have to now make a commitment to the world. But more sinisterly, what also starts is America's military domination of the world. How many of you know how many military bases the United States has in the world? Anybody can guess how many military bases they have? A process that started in 1945. 800. America has 800 military bases around the world, and America's defense spending today, which is $800 billion a year, and if you add the ancillary services, probably about 1.5 trillion a year, this is bigger than the next 26 countries combined. So you can imagine the scale that America's defense spending is bigger than the next 26 countries combined, and out of those 26 countries, 23 are allies. Only 3 are America's enemies. Just to give you a sense of the scale. So all of this happened, and America built these military alliances. You've heard of CENTO, the Pakistan joined CENTO, for example, and then started getting American arms and weapons from 1956, which then created problems between India and Pakistan, etc., etc. So there's a huge story of that. And Australia, when I talk to people in Australia, they always talk about this ANZUS treaty. America, New Zealand, Australia. It's called ANZUS. And many of us in Australia argue that ANZUS treaty is like a cross Australia is now bearing on its back, because it is because of this ANZUS commitment that Australian military had to go and fight in Iraq, go and fight in Afghanistan. And before coming here, I actually attended a big conference where all senior military people were there, and I asked them that, can you explain to me what was Australia's national interest involved in Afghanistan or Iraq? What was our national interest? Why did Australian soldiers have to be deployed in Afghanistan and Iraq? And it was only because of treaty obligation. That because you have ANZUS, and America then provides some kind of security cover to Australia and New Zealand, including a nuclear cover. You are now therefore committed that everywhere America fights a war, if America says I'm fighting a war in Afghanistan or fighting a war in Iraq, Australia and New Zealand will have to provide soldiers. So even though our national interest directly is not involved in this conflict, we are hanging by the coattails of the United States because of treaty obligations we are committed. And America did that in Southeast Asia with Seattle, Indonesia, etc. All these nations are members of Seattle. And they voluntarily joined it because they were all scared of communist people. President Sukarno of Indonesia is considered in Asian history as one of the most brutal leaders who crushed communism in Indonesia. So if you go and read Indonesian history, Sukarno's hands are basically full of blood, the way he massacred communists in America. And America is still doing it. Because today, they are not killing communists, but they are killing Islamists, for example. I can show you videos of what American forces and Philippines forces did in southern Philippines in Mindanao, in a place like Malawi, where Islamists were there, and they had to flush them out and relate them. Now, while the Western order was there, an Eastern order also was created led by the Soviet Union. And what were the institutions in the Eastern order? The counter to World Bank, IMF, etc. was Comecon. Comecon was the Communist Economic Organization whose job was to provide soft loans to communist countries so that they can convert their economies to command economies, 5-year plans, etc. There was Comintern. Comintern was Communist International, whose job mainly was to promote communist revolution in foreign countries. So countries where Soviet Union believed that there is a possibility of a communist revolution, the job of Comintern was to achieve this goal of global communism. But most importantly was the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw Pact was a military alliance of all communist countries in Eastern Europe, plus the Soviet Union, which was the counter to NATO. So you have NATO on that side, you have Warsaw Pact on this. So this is the Eastern Order, and the Cold War basically was a clash between the Eastern Order and the Western Order. So this is Cold War. America, Europe on one side, Soviet Union and others on the other side. But there was a third order that was created in the 1950s, and this third order came into effect mainly to counter the Western and the Eastern order. And this came to be known as the non-aligned order. And our first Prime Minister Nehru was one of the architects of non-aligned movement. And what was non-aligned order's basic argument? The basic argument of non-aligned movement was that we have newly acquired our independence. So we were colonial countries, we were ruled by European powers. We have now acquired our independence. So we protect that independence, that sovereign right to make decisions very, very strongly by not joining the Cold War. We don't want to join the Cold War. We don't want to join the US camp, or we don't want to join the Soviet camp, because when you join a camp, you are confined by the requirements of the camp. So if we join the Western order, the US will tell us what to do. If we join the Eastern order, the Soviet Union will tell us what to do. We don't want that. We want independence of decision making. And we have got several big items that we need to be addressed. And this has to be addressed by both superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union. And what were these big ticket items? The first was the demand for a new international economic order. That we need to reshape global economy to make it more friendly towards the global south. And remember, this term, global south, is gaining in currency today. Some of you may have read it in the paper. So global south, the developing world, we want to reset global economy. And one of the big demands of the new international economic order, all the economists would understand this. The basic demand was, the developed world must open its market to our products, but in return we will exercise a form of control over our markets. Because if we open up our markets totally, we are dead. We will never develop. So protection of our markets, but you must agree that your markets can't be protected, you must open up your markets. And this will then gradually, over time, address this question of massive balance of the balance of trade question. And we are always on the losing end when it comes to trading with the world. So new international economic order. Non-aligned movement talked about South-South trade between developing countries. We basically didn't go anywhere because in those days, if Sri Lanka and India were to trade, we would buy Sri Lankan tea and we would sell them Darjeeling. And nobody would be any better off. Right? So South-South trade was a non-starter. If you follow the writings of Latin American scholars, I don't know how many of you know this, but the UN had created an economic commission for Latin America in the 1950s, which was led by an Argentinian economist called Raul Prebisch. And Raul Prebisch, some of the ideas that he came up with synchronized with a school of thought that developed in Brazil and Argentina, primarily in Brazil, which was called the dependency school. And the dependency school basically made the argument that as long as we cannot break this cycle of dependency on the developed world, and the developed world has number of levers with which it dominates us, makes us dependent. So they are almost like our benefactors. We are dependent on them. If we can't break out from this cycle of dependency, we are not going to be able to do that. So this idea that elimination of dependency was a big part of the non-aligned movement throughout the 1950s, 60s, 70s. Import substitution industrialization was a big part of it. So, three competing orders from 1945 to 1991, dominant Western order, countered by an Eastern order, and then there is this non-aligned order. I always tell my students that the non-aligned order did not have any strategic significance. There was no military significance. They did not even want to talk about military affairs. In fact, some of you who have studied Indian foreign policy will know Prime Minister Nehru's actual original view was that after independence, India did not need a military. He even went to that extent of saying, we don't need arms, we don't need military. Why the hell do we need a military? Because our main problem is development, poverty, etc. We shouldn't spend any money on our defense, national security. And it's a shame that when China attacked us in 1962, some of our soldiers who fought in the higher reaches of the mountains or Himalayas, some of them fought barefoot, which many of you may not know. They didn't even have shoes with which to fight this war at heights of 15, 16, 17,000 feet. So this was new. Now, this order came to an end in 1991, and this is significant. And in 1991, what happened? There was, let me put it this way. In December of 1979, the Soviet Union made a disastrous decision that it needs to go into Afghanistan. The Soviet intervention, military intervention in Afghanistan, December of 1979. And Soviet Union stayed there for 10 years. And in May of 1989, 10 years later, Gorbachev agreed to pull out Soviet soldiers were pulled out, and Afghanistan then had civil war. For a while, eventually the Taliban came to power. There's a big history, right? You guys know that. There were those in the West, and I have seen this from very close quarters, who argue that because of this 10-year occupation of Afghanistan, we basically bankrupted the Soviet Union. So American scholars talk about this as Soviet imperial overstretch. The Soviet Union had overstretched itself, and this then created all kinds of problems within the Soviet Union, which eventually culminated in the demise of the Soviet Union in December of 1991. So, pulling out of Afghanistan in May 1989, within 2.5 years, the Soviet Union was gone. It was finished. It collapsed like a house of cards. And to hasten the collapse, American government did two things. It played the nationalism card within the Soviet Union. So basically telling Lithuanians, Estonians, Latvians, Ukrainians, etc., that if you guys break out of the Soviet Union and the Eastern European countries as well, we will then take you into European Union and you will be absolutely fine. Once you join the European Union, you will have the might of the European super state, the so-called super state, and you will do fantastically well. And you will have your national pride back, you will have your independence, you will have lovely democracy, you will have economic success. All you have to do is use nationalism to break out of the Soviet Union. So one argument was use nationalism to entice these people to destroy the Soviet Union. Okay. The other idea, of course, was use the Islamist card, particularly in Central Asia, so that the Central Asian revolutions against the Soviet Union, countries like Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, they argued that we want to also break out of Soviet Union because we don't want to be dominated by essentially Eastern Orthodox Christian Russians. So Russian Christian Church, Orthodox Church, we don't want, because we are Muslims, we don't want that church, Christians, to dominate us, we want our independence. So instead of one country, within 2.5 years, you had a situation when the Soviet state imploded, it basically collapsed on itself, and instead of one state, there was a birth of 15 countries. The Soviet Union had 15 Triangular republics, each of these republics became independent countries. Right? So this happened. And it set into motion what I argue is the overwhelming hegemonic dominance, the Western liberal order that existed from 1945 to 1991, this now became the global order. So this is now the only order. There is nothing left anymore. Non-aligned movement finished with the end of the Cold War. There is only one model, and that is the Western liberal hegemonic model. Now, to understand the significance of this, you have to go back and look at the writings of American scholars in the early 90s. And I would refer to two people, very, very famous people. The first one was Francis Fukuyama. Francis Fukuyama wrote a book published in the early 90s called The End of History, on the origin end of history. And in that book, he argued that the collapse of the Soviet Union is a triumph of liberalism. And he said, look, I'm not saying liberalism is the perfect ideology. No ideology is perfect. But of all the isms in the world, this is by far the best ideology. And it has survived. It has won. We have won the Cold War. It's a triumph of liberal ideology. And more importantly, he said, there is no further evolution from this ideology. So what is history? History is basically human evolution from one stage to the next. But you are already perfect. What will you evolve into? You can't evolve into anything better. And since you can't evolve into anything better, history comes to an end in a conceptual way. So this is why he titled the book very provocatively End of History. And I heard this first time from Francis Fukuyama because I heard several lectures given by him when he actually expounded on these things. So very, very powerful argument. We have won the Cold War. The world will become, everybody will become liberal and democratic. And we must therefore promote democracy, promote liberalism all over the world. This was Fukuyama's argument. The other argument came from a very conservative American thinker called Charles Krauthammer. And Charles Krauthammer is not a liberal in the real sense. Charles Krauthammer is more conservative, more realist. Charles Rammohan basically was saying, look, we are at an exceptional moment in American history. It has never happened before that there is only one superpower in the world. There is nobody even close to America. Soviet Union is gone, China is way down, there is nobody else. We are the only big power in the world, we dominate the world, our system is the best, but we must consolidate this dominance of the world by dominating the entire world. So everywhere where we find anti anti-American regimes, anti-American forces still surviving. We must get rid of it. And people asked him, how will you do that? He said, very simple answer. You have a $1 trillion military force in the world. You must use your military power to consolidate this global dominance, which suddenly history has given you an opportunity. So this is America's exceptional movement. This came to be known as American exceptionalism. And why exception? Because historically it has never happened. So this is the first time in history. We are the only superpower. And argument was we must consolidate this. So they did that. So this became from 91 to 2001. If you notice this 30-year period, America went about promoting, in the name of promoting democracy, basically a foreign policy that can be called a regime change foreign policy. We don't like Saddam Hussein, so we get rid of Saddam Hussein. We don't like Gaddafi, we get rid of Gaddafi. We don't like Bashar Assad, we get rid of Bashar Assad. Anybody who stands in front of us, we get rid of that. We have 800 military bases in the world. We can have those. We are the good guys. We are liberal, democratic. But China cannot even have one base. Guess how many military bases China has outside China? One. In Djibouti, in Africa. And in America, scholars are talking as if, China is about to invade the United States. That's complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. America's domination is overwhelming, and scholars like Rammohan said, if we can maintain this is called hegemonic power theory, that if we are the hegemonic power and we can exert that power all over the world, we will be secure for the next 100 years. We won't allow anybody to rise. We don't want any competition. And anybody who wants to rise must rise on our terms, America's terms, not on their terms, right? So this is for the 30 years. This is the model. Now, in modern terms, some pernicious consequence was, and you asked me about the Ukraine war, so I'll get the Ukraine war and then get into BRICS. This model was promoted in Western Europe in a very major way. And there is a big Dhokavaji. And the Dhokavaji was this, that in 1991, before the Soviet Union collapsed, there was a meeting between George H.W. Bush, the father Bush, who was the president of the US, his Secretary of State, James Baker, Helmut Kohl, who was the Chancellor of West Germany, and Gorbachev. In charge of a meeting, informal meeting. So what was discussed? One item, unification of Germany. Helmut Kohl wanted unification of East and West Germany, Germany going back to its original shape. That Germany existed before 1945. And there was a gentleman's agreement reached. Gorbachev promised he will get rid of the Warsaw Pact and will dissolve the Warsaw Pact. In return for two things. One, I will not oppose German unification, Germany can unify. But you must promise that you are not going to expand NATO and European Union into Eastern Europe. The only difficulty was that this was not written. This was a gentleman's agreement. And America, of course, did not keep this promise. So as soon as Germany was unified, NATO gradually started expanding eastward. European Union started expanding eastward. And in 2000, when Putin came to power in Russia, initially, a couple of years, Putin had good relations with George W. Bush. Because George W. Bush became president in 2001. But then the relationship soured because NATO and European Union were expanding. Russia basically said, there is a red line. You must not cross the red line. And what was the red line? The red line was inner ring countries. Countries that directly border Russia. NATO must not come there. European Union must not come there. So Ukraine, which is the size of Texas, big country, you must not come, NATO must not come there. And NATO must not come to Georgia or Moldova, etc. These countries. And the first problem happened in 2018 in Georgia. Some of you may remember that there was the Abkhazia War. The Russians invaded Georgia to control the territorial enclave called Abkhazia. And that happened because George W. Bush and then President Obama, they promised Georgia that Georgia can enter NATO. So Russia stopped that. And then came Ukraine, where America engineered a coup in 2014. They ousted a democratically elected president who was more pro-Russia. And then it's put in place, this is called the Maidan coup in Ukraine. They put in place a handpicked guy, Poroshenko, who then allowed Nazi elements that had already been present in Europe and Ukraine had a birat history with Nazism. ওটা বলতে গেলে এখন অন্ধকার সন্দেহ হয়ে যাবে but ওই Nazi elements গুলো were empowered after 2014 and they started killing Russians in Eastern Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine is basically পুরো Russia. The entire Donbas region is Russia. আর এই রিজনটা ইউক্রেনের আসারই কথা না, this was done by Khrushchev during the Soviet Union days for very different reasons, administrative reasons. So Putin basically said, Ukraine ভাই ঢুকতে পারবে না, European Union আসতে পারবে না, and the resistance of Russia towards NATO, towards America, it started in a major way from 2014 onwards. There was one other reason for Russia's resistance, which was, those of you who follow Russian economics would know that after the Soviet Union collapsed, the Russian economy for the first 10 years was in the doldrums. Russia কিছু ছিল না. And there are two people I consider my intellectual gurus. One of them, Stephen F. Cohen, who has passed away in 2021, is one of the probably পৃথিবীর সবথেকে well-known expert on Russian politics, Russian history, Russian politics. Princeton professor ছিলেন, NYU তে professor ছিলেন. So Stephen Cohen told me that he and his wife, they lived in Russia in the 1990s. So they have seen the Soviet Union collapse করে economic অবস্থা হয়েছে. And দুটো জিনিস বলবো, একটা হচ্ছে লোকের যে পেনশন ছিল, সেভিংস ছিল, everything was wiped out because the ruble had no value anymore. And second, many of you may not know this, but a lot of middle class housewives prostituted themselves to earn money to buy food to put on the table for their children. Stephen Cohen নিজে বলে বলেছে, আমি এটা দেখেছি যে এই ঘটনা ঘটেছিল। 10 বছর যে ইয়েলসিন পাওয়ার ছিল, ইয়েলসিন was drunk by Alabama. He was total drunkard. He had no idea of running the country. American experts were all in the Russian space, and they were giving advice. The Russian mafia was created. This so-called, this Russian strong arm leaders, Khodorkovsky, Chelsea Roman Abramovich. These guys were basically dominating the Russian economy, and natural resources গুলোকে লুট করেছিল for the first 10 years. So Western countries gained, probably to get a lot of money. Black market economy. লোকের খাওয়া দাওয়া ছিল না, দোকান সব খালি হয়ে গেছিল। সেইটা থেকে পুতিন রাশিয়াকে বার করে এনেছিল। Once he became president in 2000, he is a former PhD guy, by the way, but he's a Russian nationalist, and he argues that Russia needs to come back economically. Economically, have to stabilize. Politically, have to exert control. Law and order has to be restored back. I need to do that. And starting from 2000, by 2014, Russian economy had come back. And Russia was now in a better position to resist Ukraine parliament. এবার আমিও পাল্টা মার দিলাম, আমি এতদিন সহ্য করেছি, but আমি আর সহ্য করব না. So this starts from 2014 onwards, eventually leading to the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. But let me come to BRICS. Very interesting timeline is very interesting. The first meeting of BRICS happened in July 2006. So there was a group of 8 countries. You remember, so Russia was inducted into the group of 7. So it became G8. And then G8 থেকে আবার G7 হলো, because Russia যখন in 2014 when they started integrating in Ukraine, Crimea যখন দখল করলো Russia, Obama picked them out of the G8. So first meeting between China, Russia, Brazil, and India takes place on the sidelines of the G8 meeting in July 2006. And an organized informal grouping was created called BRIC, B-R-I-C. There was no South Africa there. In September 2006, from this initial meeting, BRIC was formalized. So there is now a grouping called BRIC. Brazil, Russia, India, China. South Africa joined BRICS in September 2010. So 2010 South Africa joined also. So from BRIC, the name became BRICS. Look at this new order which a BRICS said. Look at that order as it is unfolding right in front of our eyes. BRICS, in Pashta Desh, they constitute 41% of global population. Guess what percent of global population is represented by the United States? Anybody guess? Anybody? American population is what percentage of global population? About 3.5%. Whereas BRICS represents 41% of global population. Number one. Number two, BRICS today represents 24% of global GDP. 24% of global GDP is from BRICS. 16% of global trade represented by BRICS. If you look at the land map of the world, just the land mass, BRICS controls almost 30% of global land mass. And more importantly, remember I said America's military spending is 1 billion, not 1 billion, 1 trillion per year. If you put the 5 BRICS countries together and look at their combined military budget, it's around $450 to $500 billion per year combined. So if you see BRICS as a competitor to the US, it's not too far behind. Certainly in economic terms, a huge competitor. In military terms, a huge competitor. And the last but not least, there are 3 nuclear weapon states in BRICS. Russia is the largest nuclear power in the world in terms of weapons. Then is China, and then is India. If you count in terms of warheads, how many nuclear warheads does these 3 countries combined have? Russia has about 5,000 nuclear warheads, so which is higher than the United States. China has, we expect, around 350 to 400 nuclear warheads, and China is massively expanding the number of warheads. So the story from China is they are building more nuclear capable missiles, more nuclear warheads, they are building nuclear silos. And India, roughly, we think about 160 warheads. So if you combine India, China, Russia together, it's almost 5,500 warheads, which is 1,000 nuclear warheads greater than the United States. Not to count, of course, Britain and France. France and Britain have very small nuclear arsenal, and it is mostly based on Britain has got naval missiles, fired from submarine. France has got a nuclear triad, which is basically land, sea, and air. এবারে ব্রিক্সের আরেকটা স্টোরি বলি, যেটা হতে চলছে হবে। এই যে ওদের সামিটটা is coming up in August in Johannesburg in South Africa. There are several countries who have formally applied to join BRICS. Notable countries: Saudi Arabia, Iran, Turkey, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Cuba, Democratic Republic of Congo, which is a very resource-rich country, the Comoros Islands, Gabon, again another African country, Kazakhstan, full of natural resources, including natural gas, Argentina, second largest economy in Latin America, Bangladesh, Guinea-Bissau, Indonesia, and Venezuela. So they are waiting in the wings to join BRICS. So if they join, my sense is that this will become a BRICS plus. Because Prof acronym Barbara will be very difficult. So I think the convenient answer would be BRICS plus. Very, very important for our purpose in terms of this tectonic shift that is happening. If you look at what happened in the world since 1945, a lot of people say, where did Western liberal order, Western order. But power ta kotha theke esche? Ekta to hocche military force, huge military presence around the world. But the other was the US dollar. Those of you again studying economics would know that the dollar became the reserve currency of the world after 1945. So everything was done in the dollar. Trade was by US dollar. Initially paid to gold, but then in the 70s, the gold standard was moved. The dollar became the free currency against which every other currency was measured. So, আমরা আমাদের currency strength, আমরা আমাদের economic strength measure করি কিভাবে? যে one Indian rupee buys how many dollars? So that is how we calculate. That short country calculate. And this gives the dollar a massive amount of power. So America তে এখন যে ডিবেটটা চলছে, how many of you know how much American government is in debt? America's current national debt is about $35 trillion. So people are saying, there's $35 trillion. সবাই বলছে বিশাল ব্যাপার, but it actually means nothing. Because everything is done in the dollar, and dollar is the reserve currency, America can just print more dollars. It's risky, because at the point of time, even the world won't say to me, other dollar print position, what is the value of the dollar? But technically, America doesn't have to pay its sovereign debt. It can simply print more money. But the rest of the world, because everything is done in dollar, আমরা যেই কোনো লোনে যাব ধার করব আমাদের পে করতে হবে ইন ইউএস ডলার সো উই হ্যাভ টু আর্ন দ্য ডলার এবার টু আর্ন দ্য ডলার মিন্স টু গিভ আমেরিকা কন্ট্রোল আমেরিকা has control over you because of that currency so BRICS এর কি idea that we must create an alternative currency of trade so this is being called the de-dollarization of the world and এটা এখনো ফাইনাল এগ্রিমেন্ট হয়নি আমার মনে হয় জোহানেসবার্গে হবে BRICS will come up with a common currency. BRICS has a bank, as you know that. The BRICS Bank, which is called the New Development Bank, which is headquartered in Shanghai, in China. And if a new currency comes, I think that will be a phenomenal development. I mean, its impact on the world will be immense. Will de-dollarization actually correct that? If one alternative currency can be correct that. So BRICS is in discussion. Not only in terms of expansion, but also in terms of currency. And BRICS একটা জিনিস যেটা BRICS discussion শুনলে মনে হয় বা you will understand that এই যে BRICS rise along with a few other organizations like the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, BIMSTEC, which is Bay of Bengal, একটা গ্রুপ তৈরি হয়েছে. এটার রাইজটা কি বলছে আমাদের মানে what is the implication of that in terms of global order coming back to international order it's basically saying that the 21st century world from now on we are going to witness two ordered মধ্যে competition one is the northern order led by the US all the developed economies and US এর সঙ্গে Europe এর সঙ্গে Australia New Zealand and this is the northern order. This will be now countered by a southern order consisting of BRICS, consisting of SCO, consisting of BIMSTEC, ASEAN, etc., which will now put forward a collective view of the South. And a collective view of the Southern Mode, there will also be the voice of Russia and China. Because Russia is now cultivating the South. Amra and China, we are the real development partners of Africa, Asia, America, France, Europe, Iran now. So you pick them out, you bring us in. And we will give you more equitable development, more justice. আমরা তোমাদের exploit করবো না যেটা Western, Northern order তোমাদের American করেছে. So BRICS এর যে South Africa's the foreign minister, who is anchoring the BRICS summit, he basically said in an interview just last week that the US and the collective West has exploited and controlled the global South and not seriously engaged with the global South to solve the real problems of the South. So African leaders are basically saying America, Europe, France, এরা আমাদেরকে as a development partner যখন এসেছে the purpose was not our benefit. Purpose was to exert their control over us forms, and it is more about them rather than it's about us. And we need to break out of this. We need to have new partners.